Today we're going to be tackling about Chapter 5 of the Total Quality Management. And the chapter will tell us something about leadership and strategic planning. This chapter centers on leadership and planning as the basis of all managerial activities relating to total quality management. Leadership is the driver of an effective TQ focus. An understanding of basic leadership concept and their importance is vital for managers and workers at every level in a TQ focused organization. Strategic planning and management have become more important in organization aspiring to a high level quality levels of understanding about their procedures of how to go over developing their organizations. Now, the strategic planning management have become more important because leaders must understand how to deploy plans and quality efforts throughout the organization. Uh, the learnings that students should be encouraged to focus on what to do, how to do it, when to do it, and how leadership must actively be involved in doing it as they look at strategic quality planning and management even. Now, the Baldrige criteria provide a frame of reference for assessing leadership effectiveness and for benchmarking strategic planning. Now, the key objectives of this discussion will include to define leadership as the ability to positively influence people and systems under one's authority, to have a meaningful impact and achieve important results. As leaders, create clear and visible quality values and integrate this into the organization strategy. To emphasize that leadership is the 21st century means more than executive level leadership, but it includes teams and individuals' participation, and it is critical to the organization as a whole. And another one, the student will be able to discuss, or to discuss the five core leadership skills of vision, of empowerment, intuition, self-understanding, and value congruence. Now, to study the five major perspectives from which leadership research has been developed, and note that the summary of this can be found in some of the bonus materials and references that is going to be tackling as we go along the chapter. Now, leadership and strategic planning. Now to emphasize that leadership system, especially that the critical role of leadership is strategic management. In a time of cynicism towards ethical conduct in business, it is particularly important to stress that an effective leadership system creates clear values for organizational quality and accountability. Also, to emphasize that the leadership system sets high expectation for performance and performance improvement at that. It also builds loyalties and teamwork. It is also encourages initiative and risk-taking, and consequently subordinates organization to purpose and function. Now, to realize that an important aspect of an organization's leadership in governance, the system of management and controls exercised in the stewardship of an organization and its responsibility to the public through the practices of good citizenship, and that includes ethics, protection of public health and safety, and the environment. This must be tied into the strategic planning process as well. Now, to define strategy, it is as the pattern of decisions that determines and reveals a company's goals, policies, and plans to meet the needs of its stakeholders. Strategic planning is the process of envisioning the organization's future and developing the necessary goals, objectives, and action plans to achieve that future. To develop the process and content of planning for quality in organizations, steps must be taken, in focus. Steps in strategy formulation begin with determining the organization's mission, vision, and guiding principles. And this will lead to strategies, strategic objectives, and action plans that will set the direction for achieving the mission. Now, to become aware that the key practices for effective strategic planning will include active participation by both the top management and the lower level employees. And a strong customer focus is also be engaged. Supplier involvement is also part of it. And a well-established measurement and feedback system should also be installed. To learn that deploying strategy effectively is often done through a process called Hoshin Kanri. I will repeat. Hoshin Kanri, or policy deployment. This Hoshin Kanri, or policy deployment, emphasizes organization-wide planning and setting of priorities, providing resources to meet objectives, and measuring performance as a basis for improving it and for improvement. And it is essentially a total quality approach to executing strategy. Now, to understand how the 7 management and planning tools can help managers to implement policy deployment and are useful in other areas of quality planning. To learn that leadership and strategic planning are fundamental in the Ball-Bridge criteria for ISO 9000 to 2000 and Six Sigma. Although the relative emphasis varies, each of these frameworks view leadership as critical to successful implementation of quality and performance excellence initiatives, and strategic planning activities as a means of focusing the organization and ensuring that longer-term directions are achieved. Now, we try to define briefly the terminologies that can be found under the discussions of this chapter. Leadership is the ability to positively influence people and systems under one's authority to have a meaningful impact and achieve important results. It also implies the right to exercise authority and the ability to achieve results. Strong leadership is necessary to successfully implement a quality process. Now, leaders may seek to motivate employees and develop enthusiasm for quality with rhetoric, but taking strong, decisive, and personal action to implement quality changes, making a bigger impression on employees. Now, what is strategy? Strategy is the pattern of decision that determine the level or reveal a company's goals, policies, and plans to meet the needs of its stakeholders. Because leaders have the authority and responsibility to influence people and systems. They hold key positions as decision makers and motivators in making and carrying out the organization's plan. Envisioning the organization's future and developing procedures and operations for making it happen is the very essence of strategic planning, which generally requires strong, participative leadership. Now, senior executive executives play 9 key roles as leaders that are detailed early in the chapter. Now, basically, they fall into the categories of defining and communicating business directions, goals and expectations, performance review, evaluation, problem solving, creating stimulating work environment, soliciting and using customer feedback, developing a motivating climate for employees, and recognizing contributions and providing honest feedback. Now, the 5 core leadership skills exhibited by effective leaders, as described by Bird, are vision, empowerment, intuition, self-understanding, and value congruence. Now, leaders are visionaries, anticipating and striving for the future, not reaching back into the past. They empower and encourage employees to participate in quality improvement efforts. Now, and they develop cross-functional teamwork and customer supplier partnership rather. They must be willing to follow their own intuition to make difficult decisions that will help the organization to be successful. It's going to be, an intuition based on knowledge, skills, and education that would propel you as a leader to make harsh decisions and swift reaction on things that it's being challenged, part of the challenges of an organization. They must be able to identify their own strengths and weaknesses and understand the relationship with employees and within the organization. Now, value congruence occurs when leaders integrate their basic assumptions and beliefs about the nature, the mission, and the relationship of the organization into the company's management system. Specifically, values include trust and respect for individuals, openness, teamwork, integrity, and commitment to quality. Uh, Increasingly, values relating to corporate governance and ethics are also being scrutinized before carefully than ever by employees, stockholders, and the public. The leading practices of top managers in TQ-based operations includes the following. Managers create a strategic vision and clear quality values revolving around customers, both external and internal, that serve as a basis for business decisions at all levels of the organization. Managers set high expectations and motivate employees to do things they do not believe they can do, doing things that are impossible, perhaps. Managers demonstrate substantial personal commitment and involvement in quality, often in a missionary-like fashion, by practicing what they preach, leading by examples. They serve as a role model for an entire organization. Now managers integrate quality values into daily leadership and management. And managers sustain an environment for quality excellence. Examples each can be found in the text. Now, next is the traditional leadership theories. These are based on 4 common perspectives. No? What are these? The trait approach involves discerning how to be a leader by examining the characteristics and methods of recognized leaders. Number 2 is the behavioral approach. It attempts to determine the types of leadership behaviors that lead to successful task performance and employee satisfaction. The third is the contingency approach. The contingency approach holds that there is no universal approach to leadership. Rather, effective leadership behavior depends on situational factors. Example, Who is leading? Who is led? What is the situation? Well, that may change over time, no? Depending on cases and and situation. Next, the approach. Role approach suggests that leaders perform certain roles depending on the situation. So they can be anything. They can be anybody. Now, these theories implications have a total quality in that they provide different views of how leaders lead. They also help to understand how these theories have evolved to the present. The older views suggest that perspectives on quality management may benefit from looking at what other leaders do, but they also contain an implied warning that there is no one best way that can be incorporated into every organization. Therefore, it is effective if effective leadership behavior depends on situational factors. For example, who is leading, who is led, and what is the situation. That may change over time. So the TQ leader needs to determine the leader, led, and situational variables in or his own part of the organization and find out what works. Likewise, in the role approach, where leaders must perform certain roles depending on the situation. Well, the TQ leader establishes what roles need to be filled within his or her own organization and not someone from other successful ones. Now, next is the emerging theories. The emerging theories enhance or extend current theory by attempting to answer questions raised but not answered by traditional contingency approaches. For example, attributional theory states that leaders' judgment on how to deal with the subordinates in a specific situation is based on their attribution of the internal or external causes of the behaviors of the followers. Now, one of the most widely used emerging theories is emotional maturity theory. I will repeat, the emotional maturity theory. It is based on the premise that too much attention has been placed on the rational side of leadership in leadership research. The author of the theory, Daniel Goleman, states that emotionally intelligent leaders must develop characteristics of self-awareness, self-regulation, motivation, empathy, and social skill. Such characteristics and skills are not generally captured in performance evaluation systems. Self-management and interpersonal skills are as essential to managerial success as rational skills are. The implications for a total quality system are that without self-management skills, it is difficult to inspire and motivate peers and subordinates into developing, supporting an integrated leadership system and long-range plans for the organization. Without interpersonal skills, it is difficult for managers to work on building rapport among customers, among suppliers, and among others outside the organization that are needed to establish long-term effectiveness. The leadership system refers to how leadership is exercised throughout the organization, and it includes both formal and informal mechanism for leadership development. It requires the elements of number one, clear values that reflect stakeholder requirements and set high expectation for performance and improvement. Number two, a means of building loyalty and teamwork based on the shared values, encouraging initiative and risk-taking, and subordinating organizations to purpose and function. And number three, a mechanism for leaders to engage in self-examination and improvement. Now, steering teams in leadership systems have the responsibility to provide leadership, planning, implementation, and review direction. Now, leadership involves articulating a quality vision and ensuring that the business management process is aligned, deployed, and supported at all levels. Okay? Now, planning involves strategic planning, setting goals and priorities, ensuring that all employees have the opportunity to participate, and aligning rewards and recognition system to support the quality approach. Implementation involves development of key business, process, and management teams, reviewing plans, and working with suppliers and business partners in carrying out joint quality planning. Review includes tracking progress of various measures, improving quality system, planning improvements, and validating the impact of improvements. Now, public responsibility and community support. Support includes what is now termed corporate governance in the Bobridge award criteria amongst them. It includes the development of ethics, protection of public health, safety, and the environment. So that is the Bobridge corporate governance. Now, senior leaders must act and prevent problems, make forthright responses when problem occurs, and make information available in order to maintain public awareness, safety, and confidence in the organization. Leaders should not only comply with local, regional, and national laws and regulations and policies, but also leaders should not also leaders must make an effort to continuously improve beyond mere compliance. And good citizenship implies that an organization and its leaders support publicly important purposes such as improving education, public health and the environment, etc., and many more within the limits of its resources. Okay? Frances Hesselbein, president of the Peter F. Drucker Foundation for Nonprofit Management and former CEO of the Girl Scout of the USA, writing about the future of leadership, noted, "The leader for today and the future will be focused on how to be rather than how to do, how to develop quality, character, mindset, values, principles, and courage." Okay, a strategy is patterned or plan that integrates an organization's major goals, policies, and actions, consequences into a cohesive whole. Formal strategies contain three elements. So what are these? So number one, goals to be achieved. And number two, policies that guide or limit action. And number three, action sequences or programs that accomplishes the goals. The leading practices for firms that do effective strategic planning include top management and employees all actively participate in the planning process. They use customer wants and needs to drive the strategy. They involve suppliers in the strategic planning process. And another one is that they have well-established feedback systems for continuous measurement and re-evaluation of the planning process. So again, these are the leading practices for firms that do effective strategic planning. Now, we go to the steps in the strategic planning process. Actually, it is shown in some examples as Park Place Lexus. Yeah, that's you can Google it and then check on it. Park Place Lexus and Eastman Chemical Company. Once the company's mission, vision, and guiding principles have been determined, the organization must assess the gap as to where it is now and where it wants to be as described in its vision. Now, using this assessment, it must then develop goals, strategies, objectives that will enable it to bridge this gap. So there, no? Knowing all these aspects, no? For you to be able to determine and where you will be coming from. And these key business factors will include the nature of company's products and services, its principal customers, major markets, and key customer quality requirements. Now, it also includes position in market and competitive environment. And it will also include the facilities and technologies and the suppliers and other factors such as the regulatory environment and industry changes, the trends, the dynamism of the particular product and services. So these are the key business factors, no, that you will have to determine. Now, strategic plans must be consistent with important business factors of the company, which I've stated a while ago. For example, plans for a company in a highly competitive, fast-changing market might include a fast cycle time and more attention to understanding emerging customer needs than plans for a company with a low-cost focus on a mature market. Okay? The purpose of mission of the organization is a statement of why the organization is in the business. In the past, the purpose of the organization was frequently stated in terms of products or services produced or profitably to stockholders. Now, TQ-focused firms are now stating their purpose in terms of their customer focus and their commitment to strive for a higher level of quality. Now, the vision statement is a statement of guiding values, principles, and direction expected growth of an organization or some segment of it, and is generally developed by key managers and others who are responsible for planning and carrying out that vision for the company. Now, vision statements may be developed at any level within the organizational hierarchy from top to bottom. This is a very worthwhile activity actually, and as long as the statements are coordinated as to the fit or to fit with those of the next higher level and the overall organization's vision. Now, values or guiding principles guide the journey to that vision by defining attitudes and the policies for all employees, which are reinforced through conscious and subconscious behavior in all levels of the organization. Now, the vision or the mission and the guiding principles serve as the foundation for strategic planning. Okay, I will repeat. The mission, the vision, and the guiding principles will serve as the foundation for strategic planning. Now, top management and others who led, especially the CEO, must articulate them continuously. They also have to be transmitted and practiced and reinforced by or through symbolic and real action before they become real to the employees. Lead by example. Now, and people, groups or organization, even the external or the external environment that do business with them, they should see that. Leaders should articulate it. They should feel, see, and live with it. Live by example. Now, a while ago, I've talked about Hoshin Kanri. Who is Hoshin Kanri? Or what is a Hoshin Kanri? It is known as a policy deployment or management by planning in the Japanese process of deploying management strategy, and it was adopted in the USA. Now, various companies have various definitions for policy deployment. In all cases, it emphasizes organization-wide planning and setting of priorities. It provides resources to meet objectives and measures performance as a basis for improving performance. Okay? Catchball is another term. Catchball. Catchball is the term for the negotiating process used within an organization to determine long and short-term quality objectives. Now, leaders communicate mid-term objectives and measures to middle managers who develop short-term objectives and recommend the necessary resources, targets, and roles and responsibilities. Now, catchball is not an autocratic top-down management style. It is actually marshals the collective expertise of the whole organization and as a result in realistic and achievable objectives that do not conflict. Okay? Now, policy deployment is a planning and implementation method that ties improvements activities to long-term strategies of the organization. And it is driven by data, and it is supported by documentation, and it emphasizes company-wide planning and includes setting of priorities for further improvement. It is somehow similar to MBO, but has a different focus. First, MBO focuses on the performance of the individual employee, while policy deployment focuses on the organization as a whole. Objectives in the MBO are tied to performance evaluation and rewards. And secondly, MBO objectives do not support the company's objectives but are set independently. Now, third, the focus of the MBO is as a control mechanism between supervisors and subordinates. And fourth, MBO objectives usually are not emphasized in daily work, but are brought only on at the performance review time. Now, given the 7 management and planning tools described in this chapter will include number 1, affinity diagrams. This is a tool for organizing a large number of ideas, opinions, and facts relating to a broad problem or subject arena. Example is the vision statement. Next is the interrelationship diagraphs. Interrelationship diagraphs, or digraphs rather, identifies and explores causal relationships among related concepts or ideas. It shows that every idea can be logically linked with more than one idea at a time and allows for lateral thinking rather than linear thinking. Okay, so I may repeat, it is interrelationship digraphs. Okay. Now, next is the tree diagram. Tree diagram maps out the path and task necessary to complete a specific project or reach a specific goal. Next is the matrix diagrams. These are spreadsheets that graphically displays relationships between ideas, activities, or other dimensions in such a way as to provide logical connecting points between each item. Now, matrix data analysis is another one. It takes data and arranges it to display quantitative relationships among variables to make them more easily understood and analyzed. Now, next is the process decision program chart. It is a method for mapping out every conceivable event and contingency that can occur when moving from a problem statement to possible solution. Last but not the least is the arrow diagrams. The arrow diagrams are another name for PERT or CPM. It's a project planning diagrams. Now, students who have had a basic operations management may be familiar with the term network diagrams for project planning and scheduling. Now, I will repeat the 7 management planning tools that will be described in this chapter. Affinity diagram, interrelationship digraphs, tree diagram, matrix diagrams, matrix data analysis, process decision, and arrow diagrams. Okay, process decision program chart and arrow diagrams. Okay, given that, next is the key contextual factors that affect organizational structure, and this includes company organizational and organizational guidelines. Number two is the management style. Number three is the customer influences. Number four is the company size. Number five, diversity and complexity of the product lines. Number six is the stability of the product line. Seven, financial stability. And eight, availability of personnel. The implications for quality are that the quality philosophy, systems, procedures, and people must be aligned with the organizational structure and vice versa. It has been said that structure follows strategy. So, the quality strategy will ideally drive the development of a structure in order to carry it out. In reality, structures that have been in place for a long time are often difficult to change when the strategy changes, which creates significantly misalignment and organizational stress. For example, when a highly regulated industry such as telecommunications or electric power is deregulated by the government, then the need for customer focus, increased service quality, and organizational structural change becomes painfully apparent. It's hard, but difficult to accomplish. Okay? Now, many variations of organization structure exist, but they are commonly based on one of the following three forms. Number one is line organization. Number two is line and staff organization. Number three is the matrix organization forms. Now, the line organization is a simple form that is most successful in small firms. It is not generally used in large organizations, where the line and staff structure is most prevalent. Neither the pure line organization nor line and staff organization works very well, where the environment of the firm and its industry is changing very rapidly. That is because this type of organization tends to be rigidly structured. However, the matrix organizational form is better suited to rapidly changing environments, but it is more difficult to develop effectively control of outcomes in order to meet goals and using this form of organization. Now, TQ-focused organizations are often taking a process view of organization. Therefore, they are increasingly structuring their organization around functional or cross-functional teams. Now, to carry out the work, high-performance teams that focus on core processes, quality improvements, or targets are often formed. And these are frequently coordinated through cross-functional coordinating committees, management or quality management council, or whatever, no, etc., to overcome the problems of lack of control and accountability inherent in such matrix form organizations. Now we discuss about the category 1 of the Ball-Bridge criteria, which is leadership. Now, and its signifying importance. The criteria requires information about how senior leaders carry out their roles in developing strategy and reviewing performance, developing leaders within organization, and creating an organization that is capable of adapting to changing opportunities and requirements. And that is category 1 of the Ball-Bridge criteria. It also asks how the organization's governance system addresses management and fiscal accountability and protection of stakeholders' interest. In addition, the criteria of how senior leaders review organizational performance and capabilities through its performance measurement system and use review findings to drive improvements and change. Now, the category 2 of the Ball-Bridge criteria is strategic planning. It focuses on drivers of customer satisfaction, customer retention, and customer share that lead to higher competitiveness, profitability, and business success. Now, the category is divided into two sections, labeled as number one, strategy development, and number two, strategy deployment. In the strategy development, it will require applicants to outline how they create a view of the future that takes into account the market factors in which they compete and the process of how they compete. Now, however, the strategy deployment seeks information about specific action plans that a company develops, how they are deployed, and a projection of the performance. Now, the strategic planning's category requirements are intended to encourage strategic thinking and action, but do not imply that formalized plans or planning system must be developed. Okay, now we talk about the ISO 9000 2000. This ISO 9000 2000 has placed increased emphasis on leadership. The entire section on management responsibility is concerned with the role of leadership in driving a quality system. Now, other specific responsibilities are spelled out in a detail or in other clauses of the standards. Now, strategic planning is not addressed as broadly as in ISO 9000, but it is in the Bulbridge criteria. Now, this Bulbridge criteria, but to require that the top management ensure that quality objectives are established at relevant function and levels within the organization, that they be measurable and consistent with the quality policy, that planning be carried out in order to meet quality system requirements, and the quality objectives, and that the integrity of the quality management system is maintained when changes are planned and implemented. Okay? Now, leadership is one of the most fundamental values of Six Sigma. Now, driving organizational change to create and sustain a Six Sigma culture simply cannot be done without strong leadership. In other words, Six Sigma cannot be an add-on or a flavor of the month. It must become the way business is done in organization to adopt it. Leaders in 21st century organizations are finding that not only must they move on hierarchically, structurally organized in an structured organization to learning organizations, but also they must take the next step of moving from learning organizations to teaching organizations. Okay? Okay. So therefore, what I have shared to you is about how to strategically position the company based on leaders and leadership, and how do they formulate strategic planning, and how important leaders to coming up with the right and proper assessment of the organization to have a very good and implemented very good planning, strategic planning, and the very good process of implementation. Okay, so there, I hope that I have imparted some learnings about the concept of leadership and strategic planning. See you again and have a good day.